Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. Uh, I'm Joel Barna. I'm um, an interested teacher at Appamada. I see many friends and a couple of faces that are new to me, and I welcome you. I will be the host for today's inquiry, and I see that we still have people joining us. So let's sit until quarter to the hour, so maybe another 14 minutes. I'm going to ring a bell to start us off. 3 rings of the bell. It might be good to sit up straight. Uh, feel your feet on the ground. Feel your feet or how you're sitting, connecting you with the earth and the connection that you have with the air around you in the room that you're in, the people in the world around you, connections with infinite space that extends. Your connection through infinite space extends back to the beginning of time and will carry your actions into the future. Just hold those simple things in mind and sit up straight and let's sit together. Please join me in saying the robe chant. Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. Wearing the universal teaching, I realize the one true nature, thus harmonizing all being. Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. Wearing the universal teaching, I realize the one true nature, thus harmonizing all being. Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. Wearing the universal teaching, I realize the one true nature, thus harmonizing all being. It's allergy season here in Albuquerque, and I'm sorry, I'm going to be trying not to cough, but I apologize for when it does happen. Again, I'm Joel Barna. I live in Albuquerque, but I've been practicing with Appamada for about 17 years, I think. And I'm an entrusted teacher, one of 3 entrusted teachers currently with Appamada. And I want to start by offering thanks. First, of course, to our ancestors and our teachers, Peg and Flint. I want to thank Ed for being the online monitor and making it possible for people to smoothly come in and connect with this gathering today. And to all the people who have that role and who do the roles at Appamada in the Zendo, participating in person. That's the wrong word. Everybody participates in person, but on site and ringing the bells and watching out to make sure that everyone who walks through the door at Appamada feels welcome and knows that the people who are participating, even if it's the very first time for them, that they are welcome and that everybody there is on their side. And then to extend also to the people who have worked to create this online connectivity, create the connectivity and tweak it to optimize it so that we can be on 7 different time zones here as we connect together. It's simply amazing, and it didn't happen by accident, and it didn't happen by itself. People have worked at this, and I just want to briefly acknowledge all the work that has gone into making this possible for us. So today I want to focus on practice discussion. There's a new practice period that is just started at Appamada, and one of the options for increasing is even the wrong word, I'll start, but doing things that can strengthen your participation, strengthen your practice during a practice period. One of the options is to, if you haven't done this already, to commit to having regular practice discussion with a teacher. I recently asked Peg, what's regular? What does she count as regular? And she said every 2 weeks at least. I've been thinking about that. And thinking about that has brought up a lot of questions about blocks that I have for practice discussion. So I'm going to talk about those some, drawing on my experiences and some experiences I've heard from other Sangha members. And then finally, I want to talk about a couple of simple steps or strategies that might be helpful in overcoming blocks. If you are someone like me who sometimes hesitates about trying to connect with a teacher for practice discussion. So I'm going to start at the very beginning here, and from what I can see on screen, most everyone is very familiar with what practice discussion is. So bear with me as I go over some basics here. Just imagine yourself with a beginner's mind, asking, "What is practice discussion anyway?" Here's some language that I found in an internet search that turns out to be drawn from the Austin Zen Center website. Practice discussion is an important aspect of Zen training that allows students to engage one-on-one with teachers or senior practitioners about their meditation practice and the application of Buddhist teachings. Here are some key points about practice discussion in Zen. Practice discussion provides an opportunity for students to receive individualized instruction and guidance on their meditation practice, to explore, to explore how Zen teachings apply to their daily life experiences, to present their understandings of Buddhist concepts, and to ask questions about practice-related issues. On the Appamada website, there's a page, or several pages that have some language that was crafted by Peg Syverson. And here's just one of the lines from that. I'll read the whole statement later on. But what Peg writes is, practice discussion is an exploration and support for your practice path in your journey of awakening. So you may wonder, why meet a teacher for practice discussion? So that's a statement of what it is, but why? Why meet a teacher for practice discussion? You may have led things that lead you to think that meditation, and Zazen in particular, if you're a beginner, and Zazen in particular, is simply facing the wall and getting a clear picture of reality. That is, it's a purely individual pursuit. Peg and Flint teach over and over and over again that it's not purely an individual pursuit, that it is about connecting with our community and with all the universe. But anyway, I started with that exact kind of expectation when I was sitting first at the Austin Zen Center, and I brought it with me when I first came to Appamada many years later. So what I thought of also was fairly easy things that I might want to bring to a teacher, such as, am I doing it right? Am I sitting right? Do I have to sit in lotus position? It really hurts. Can I sit in a chair? Is my posture correct? Is my breathing right? When am I supposed to bow, and what's that about? What do these Japanese words mean, and why are we using Japanese words anyway? It's fairly easy for me, at least. It was fairly easy for me to bring those as questions to a teacher. Next, of course, once you have experienced sitting for a while, you might find yourself having some persistent thoughts. In fact, a never-ending cascade of persistent thoughts that become troubling to you. They may dwell on uncomfortable confrontations from the past, or potential ones for the future, or fears for the future, feelings of grief, fear for your own mortality. Or you may think, why am I thinking about myself all the time, and my needs and my desires, and why do I feel so little compassion for other people? Those are harder things to imagine bringing to a teacher, I think, certainly early on, and as I will give from my personal experience, even later on. Maybe you shouldn't burden the teacher with those kind of questions. Maybe you should just sit here and, for a year or 5, and see if you can work those out on your own. Or maybe you should quit. Maybe that would be the easiest thing, rather than having to go and sit with a teacher and pose these difficult questions. In fact, that's what I did when I was sitting at the Austin Zen Center. I never managed to have a good practice discussion. I had a couple of meetings with teachers, and because of my conditioning and my expectations, I was unable to get any sense that the teacher was hearing me or that I belonged there, so I quit. And it was only several years later that I, through advice from Flint, discovered Appamada and was able to meet Peg for the first time and to have a real practice discussion. So the focus on, what to focus on in practice discussion, this is what the whole statement, pardon me, the whole statement on the Appamada website is. It says, be mindful to focus this precious time on issues in your practice. Questions or concerns about Zen or Buddhism, or aspects of your everyday life or relationships that are a challenge for your practice. Practice is not therapy, counseling, or coaching. It is an exploration and support for your practice path and your journey of awakening. It added here, and this is very important because I see our current head student is joining us today, Rosemary Gates. Tea with the current head student is an opportunity for a rich spiritual connection with a Sangha member in the same way. So I said I was going to talk about blocks to participating in practice discussion, and you may recognize that these are also blocks that come up to just general practice in Zen. That they echo back and forth. So the statement above that I just read is a very lovely and succinct discussion of what can happen in practice discussion, and what you might want to focus on that will be most useful to you. But it leaves out a couple of things that are important to us as social creatures, as mammals. Parts of our brains are always working on a couple of questions, such as, who are you meeting? And what are you seeking to engage in practice discussion? And who will be meeting you? And who are you when you show up? And how will you be met? Those are kind of anxiety-producing questions in everyday life. And you may have read in Zen literature that the way that a teacher may meet someone in practice discussion, say Joshu, is to grab them by the nose, or hit them with a stick, or shout at them. That may be in the back of your mind as you approach having practice discussion with someone, even if you have seen that person be very gentle, very welcoming in the Zendo or online. Thinking about yourself, you may think, oh, well, what if I'm not even able to recognize if all I am seeking is a kind of therapy, a kind of coaching. That can plant a seed of self-doubt. And what if I'm projecting, meeting with Peg, for example? What if I have projections about what she is, even though I don't know her that well? Is she going to be like my mother or my oldest sister when they are at their most critical? And these images that I carry from my childhood and being a teenager, those are blocks that could come up. And I formulated one that is kind of my greatest hits. Everybody's going to have their own, probably infinite number of possible reasons that can amount to blocks for seeking practice discussion, just as they amount to blocks for sitting in zazen. A teacher is knowledgeable. Here's my statement. A teacher is knowledgeable and their time is precious. In fact, they may be so far above me in attainment that anything I can ask about is embarrassingly trivial and will show how small and distorted my personality is. I don't know if I can face that. In fact, I probably don't belong here. I wrote an email to the Sangha last year at a time when we had a new head student and there were some changes being made in schedules for practice discussion. And my idea was simply to encourage people to seek out the many, many people who are available for practice discussion or for tea, and in general, doing what Peg describes, supporting each of us in our practice. And I was trying to reflect on my own experience, and I said I wrote the following. Again, it sounds pretty grim, but it was intended as giving an example overcoming blocks. So I wrote, speaking for myself, I recall that the first practice discussion meeting I had with Peg, I came into the practice discussion room full of shame and turmoil, hardly able to form sentences, and terrified that she might be able to read my thoughts and that she might kick me out because I didn't belong. Peg took that all in with a glance and then simply met me with respect, acknowledging the small self that I needed to talk about, and then showing me, through her demeanor as much as her words, the Buddha nature that connected us both to the whole cosmos. First meetings with a teacher are often very difficult. I met a teacher from a Rinzai Zendo here in Albuquerque just a few days ago, and she was talking about people telling her that they often wait 10 years before they ever show up at a Zendo, even though they've been thinking about it, and then another 10 years before they voluntarily come forward to have practice discussion. My first meeting with Peg was 17 years ago. I've had countless discussions, or at least I can't count how many practice meetings with her, individually, scheduled, unscheduled, during sessions, and so on. And of course, meetings with Flint and other teachers at Appamada, and then peer practice discussion, and then sitting, as it were, on the other side of the cushion and being able to offer practice discussion. I recall my meeting with Peg very clearly, and I recall the sense of being able to breathe more clearly, or more easily, more expansively, and the sense of recognizing that although I had come in with all my focus only on limitations, that I was being shown that there were more resources available to me within myself and within connections with other people, and that was so important. And that's what's made me stay with Appamada, stay connected with Appamada, stay with our community, and indeed want to do what I can to support our community for almost 17 years now. But guess what? Part of me forgets what I learned from that initial practice discussion, even though it's clear when I remember it, and falls right back into conditioning and shame over and over again. In Buddha's in the book Buddha's Brain, Rick Hansen describes how this is just a feature of the way our brains work, and how we process potentially difficult relationships with other people, and by latching on to the most difficult things and almost immediately forgetting the good things, and that it takes real work to let the good things in and to help them be guides to us for the future. So, like I say, what comes into my mind every time I'm going to reach to push the keyboard button to connect with Peg for practice discussion? What comes into my mind, at least part of it, is that the teacher is knowledgeable and their time is precious. In fact, they may be so far above me that anything I can ask about is trivial, and may show me, and just will show me up, And indeed, can I really talk about the same things that I've been talking about for all these years? In fact, I probably should just skip it for now and just see if if there's some other way, like maybe quitting. So that's what comes up for me, at least in part of my mind. Now, I want to talk about something that I've learned recently, some things that I've learned recently that may be helpful with that, and that I find very helpful, and that may be, if you ever have a question about whether you should approach someone for practice discussion, that may be something that helps you feel more centered and more in the spirit of what Peg describes as support for your practice. Peg recently was talking about a book that I've started reading and listening to. It's called Belonging, and it's by a social psychologist named Geoffrey L. Cohen. Professor Cohen is a longtime practitioner of social psychology, and I would say that the main point of his book is that a lot of what we think of as personality traits, inherent personality traits, are in fact constructed, socially constructed. And that what that means is that we have opportunities as adults, as compassionate human beings, to shape social situations that'll be more supportive of each other instead of just defaulting to projections that we have about each other. And he focuses a lot on situations in which there are racial disparities or disparities among social groups, and how those can be changed by paying attention to the socially constructed nature of our expectations, the things that we automatically kind of think about other people, and how those shape what we do. And one of the most interesting things that he does seems kind of oblique to this process, but it's really instructive, and it really makes a difference in the book. And I want to see if I can put this on screen. Well, no, let me give the preamble first. He describes what he calls as a personal values assessment. And he describes situations in which students in different groups are going to have an aptitude test. And the aptitude test that American education loves so much. And he gives some of the students as a test, he divides them into groups. And some of the students do an exercise before they take the test where they think about what they value. The list that he has is for high school students, and it includes things like looking smart, being good at sports, and then other more generalized qualities. And he asks the students to think about, he gives them a long list, and he says choose one or two, write down why they're important to you, write down ways in which they would be important to you in your life. And I've adapted his list, and I want to actually put it up on screen for just a minute. I did this with the precepts class the other day. We were talking about a difficult subject, which was the precept around sexuality. And I said, before we get going on this subject, which I know has been difficult for me to talk about in a group and has been difficult for others to talk about, let's just look at this list and make some notes. So there's no time really or opportunity for us to make notes here. But I want to see if I can share this on screen. So you can see I have adapted Geoffrey Cohen's list of values to something that I think is more applicable in this group, and it is. And I'll send this out later. There's no, you don't have to make any notes, but just look at this list, and if you would, I'm going to read the list out loud. Buddhist underlying values: loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. Sense of humor, honesty, bringing a sense of curiosity and learning to life's challenges. Independence or agency and a sense of self-worth. Creativity. Just off the top of your head, if you had to choose one, think about it for a minute, and think about it in terms, in these terms. Think about a person you admire who holds you in self-esteem and that you share values with. How would you tell that person about times when the value that you have chosen has helped guide your actions and about what that felt like? So there's an awful lot in that one paragraph. And I just want to ask you to sit with it for a couple of minutes. And I'm going to watch the clock here for 2 minutes. How would you tell someone that you admire and that you know cares about you, about the way that your values, or just this one value that you've zeroed in here, how would you tell them about what it feels like when you can draw on this value to guide your actions? Less than a minute to go. Okay, so my point in asking you to do that, so you can open your eyes again and come back. My point in asking you to do that is then to ask if you had ever had a block with asking to meet someone in practice discussion, and you had this in mind, you had this value assessment of yourself that might increase your sense of compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. This exercise itself, I think, is a way of engaging all of the list of qualities that are there and just holding them in a way that we can recognize. If you were then reaching for the key that would connect you with practice discussion, would that make it easier? I would say for myself, it makes it a lot easier to start with this. And here's another example, another brief statement that I didn't even type up on this, but I will send out afterwards. It's strange. I was reading something on Reddit that had nothing to do with Buddhism, certainly, and really nothing to do with seeking connections with other people. But it was a statement that came up in a comment, a random comment. What if you could imagine maybe you're facing a troubling situation or some kind of challenge, or maybe you've made a mistake in the past. And instead of ruminating about what could go wrong, you could think in a kind of learning mindset way, what is the most helpful, most compassionate thing I can learn from this situation? I was telling Peg about this last week, and she said, well, I would add something. Peg said, I would add liberating. So you're going to approach Peg for practice discussion, or someone that you might, because of your conditioning, find somewhat intimidating. And you think, what is the most helpful, most compassionate, and most liberating thing that I can imagine could come from having practice discussion? To me, that's very liberating. That really is a way of changing focus from my own limitations to possibilities. So like that. So I can't believe it's already quarter after the hour and we only have 16 minutes left. But I thought that was going to take 15 minutes to talk about. There we are. So I'm going to take down the sharing thing. Again, I'll send this out for anyone that's interested. And let me please invite you to come forward with any questions. And may I ask if you would consider that in formulating your question that you think of it as something that would be helpful to you, something that would be compassionate to all involved, something that would be liberating for you. I don't know, something, putting it that way sounds like a big job, but don't make it into a big job. It doesn't have to be hard. So there's another set of blocks that comes with inquiry. You're not just meeting somebody, you're doing it in public. It's going to be recorded. So, you know, that's extra scary. So here's brave Lisa Kuntz. Welcome.
Hi. Hi, Joel. Hi, everyone. Well, I will say that often I come forward with trepidation, hoping that my trivial comments will help somebody else. That's what gives me courage. I hope it will help someone else. And so I want to thank you. I'm so glad I'm here today. It's like you are reading my mind. It's great to be witnessed. I have some terrific blocks to practice discussion, and I feel a lot of shame around them. When I was in Austin practicing, it was really easy to have practice discussion with Peg or with Lynn. I mean, it was so, I just did it. Because if you were sitting, it's like, hey, just let us know. And there would be a procedure, a format for it that made it really easy. But what you're saying and it's like, yeah, I like being witnessed. It's like I have these fears about how trivial and repetitive my questions are, and how unskillful and embarrassed I feel. I almost feel like crying right now. Um, and yeah, these blocks have, they're just in my face right now. So, what has been compassionate and liberating about your talk and your wonderful questions has been that I don't feel so alone in this. It's been huge. And it's like, oh, I've had the intention of gathering my energy around this, but I really needed a nudge or a few nudges.
Thanks, Lisa. You made a point at the beginning that you come forward because you know, or you've been told and you've experienced also from others, I'm sure, that even trivial things faced in a forum like this is helpful to others, and people who are holding the same questions. And I just want to acknowledge that you've done that for me dozens of times.
Oh, wow. That's pretty shocking. Sometimes I feel that it's all that I have to offer.
Mm-hmm.
If you know what I mean, it's the only thing I have to offer. It's like
Totally.
showing up and speaking up.
And speaking up for exiled parts, vulnerable parts that
Mm.
are that may have shame, that may seek to be witnessed so that they can at least release some of that shame. Uh, what you just said is what I would describe as is what I see as my opportunity for teaching. So I, and I had a discussion last week with someone, another teacher, and said, I talk about my ADD symptoms a lot, you know, and how I avoid taking on tasks that are, I'll procrastinate for a year on something that will take me 20 minutes when I finally get around to it. And the person I was talking to said, it must be pretty hard to talk about that. It seems pretty shameful, or you have said it seems shameful. But when you do that, it helps other people who may feel the same thing. So uh, that's that's really what I think I can what I can offer sitting in this seat is just to acknowledge that and to draw on the experience that I've had from other people. Oh yeah, talking about these things actually provides a way for people other than myself to be more open, to be more accepting of themselves, and to have at least that little increment of liberation. You know.
Makes a difference. And I want to add that some of the most embarrassing and at the time humiliating ways I've showed up or things I've said and terrifying have also been the most liberating
Hmm.
because it was so hard to be that vulnerable
Mm-hmm.
and feel that foolish, you
Mm-hmm.
know, the part that feels so foolish that I haven't resolved this over years.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And to have it come up again and again. So foolish that even with being met in loving presence, that it recurs. You know,
Yeah.
that's just how and as Peg and Flint have said to me many times, well, you don't get new conditioning. Of course those things are going to come up again and again. But I want to say also that, you and I are focusing on overcoming a sense of shame and being willing to speak up for some things that are difficult for us, but that there is another aspect which I feel very strongly right now, and that is the sense that in speaking and in being met in a in loving presence, that resources open resources open up, and like I used the metaphor before that I could breathe more freely, that there's more space around me. and those resources which I might have been ignoring up to that point actually were there all the time, and that's such a wonderful discovery. You know, do you feel that way? Have you had that experience?
I do. And briefly, I want to say that I also have been, here for 17 years. And early on, I remember Peg, saying more than once that, when you turn towards things instead of away, it releases more energy. But it took me years and years and years to turn towards some of the most terrifying things. And it's only during the last year or so I have a tremendous um, amount of energy I didn't have before. And I know
Hmm.
I talked, yeah, I mean, it's like kind of amazing. And it's turning towards and being truthful about what was most terrifying
Hmm.
and not trying to rationalize it away. But I want to wind up because I know there's others and we're coming to the end, of our time.
Thank you for that generosity, Rosemarie. Welcome.
Thanks, Joel. I really enjoyed this very, very much. And I think one of the things that is really helpful in this whole process, well, for me, let me start with um, deciding to ask Flint to meet with me. It was just absolutely terrifying. And, but I mean, the reason that I wanted to meet with him because I saw how loving he was with everyone. And, So I took a chance. And of course, he's been that way with me. And that hasn't been easy to receive all of that kindness, which I hadn't been used to. And the other thing is that it takes a really, really long time. I think it's important for everyone to realize to even ask a good question. I mean, all questions are good, but there is this thing, what's a good question about your practice? And to even understand how to do it just takes years. So to even to come in to a meeting and saying, I'm really not sure. I'm here to meet with you. And so if I were with you, Joel, you would say, well, tell me more, something like that. Or, how was your sit today? Or what came up for you? You would help me.
Mm-hmm.
You would help me get to, and even maybe I start with something that sounds off topic or something. You would bring it into the practice. You would help me. So I don't know if this is helpful at all, but yeah, that it takes just everybody understand. Sometimes I think when we read things about the processes in Zen, it's the fact that these things take a very, very long time is sometimes not emphasized, and people can get discouraged. So yeah, I wanted to add that. And it's about a love connection. That's what it's about. And that's I think what scares a lot of people too.
Yeah.
So
well, that's a valuable point. And let me ask, or let me just say that I have a thought in reaction to your saying it can be very scary and so on, and it may take a long time. But if you came in and you and I were meeting and you said, I don't know where to start, my mind's just all over the place and I don't know where to start, and then and I would say, well, Rosemary, think for just a minute. What are some values that you and I share? I mean, I'm going to lean on this new stuff that I brought forward today a lot, and I would think, and I would ask you, just take a minute. What are some values we share? And then after that, I would say, what would be most helpful? What would be the most compassionate thing for yourself to step forward with, and the most compassionate thing for me to meet you, the point to meet you at? And then what would be liberating for both of us? Just could that help you in formulating a question?
I think it has a good probability of doing that.
Yeah.
I enjoyed, the process that you walked us through.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, and what I like about the way you just presented is what do you think we share here in name a few things. What do you and how can sharing more about that be helpful to you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, I liked it. I think it could be helpful.
Yeah. And maybe, and then turn toward like the question that you began with, like what came up in practice? What, you were just sitting, what came up in sitting for you? Having framed it in this bigger, more open space, could that make bringing forward what maybe you just had a sadness that came on? Rachel, thank you. Okay, I see it's 12:30 and it's time. But anyway, could that help? Could that help in bringing something that might have been too difficult to bring forward before? Could that frame help?
Yeah,
maybe
I think it could. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rosemary. So as I mentioned before, Rosemary is the head student for the Appamada practice period, which will be going on for, what is it, 100 days altogether, something like that. So, and she's available for tea. And as you can tell, she's a lovely person to talk to, and very skilled in meeting people where they are. I can tell you that. So let us close today by saying the 4 practice principles. Caught in the self-centered dream, only suffering. Holding to self-centered thoughts, exactly the dream. Each moment, life as it is, the only teacher. Being just this moment, compassion's way. Caught in the self-centered dream, only suffering. Holding to self-centered thoughts, exactly the dream. Each moment, life as it is, the only teacher. Being just this moment, compassion's way. So Ed, can you speak the rest?
I will speak, and thank you, Joel. Very wonderful. And just want to remind everybody that Appamada's programs and the facilities are supported through generosity, and it makes a huge difference, and we're always very grateful for whatever you can. There is a link for that if you go to the website for appamada.org/contribute. And if you'd like to stay with us, pop yourself into gallery view. And we've got another 28 minutes or so. We'll go to the porch and we'll meet each other there. And again, thank you very much. Thank you, Joel. Hope to see as many as would like to continue with us on the porch. Aloha.